muted, Matt. No, no audio, no audio, no audio, no audio. Better.
Where is my Twitch chat so I can see?
They say they can hear me, but not Matt.
Okay, let's. There we
Oh,
go. Can you hear
oh,
me now?
yeah, someone's saying
Fingers
there we
crossed on
go.
this one.
All right,
Okay.
yes, victory.
One last tiny heart attack to get everything started as we're about to go into this stream. So, we'll start again from the beginning. We're live on Twitch. I hope that everybody can hear both of us now. And we're going to be doing a slightly navel gazing exercise as a retrospective on how Foundry got started. Long before I ever even knew about it, when it was just a sparkle in Atropos' eye. And we're going to take a look at how things worked back then, how they've changed as time has gone on, what is available in Foundry now, and we're going to see how everything goes. This is somewhat planned, but not fully prepared, so there will be
We
a little bit
planned
of chaos.
the concept.
Yes.
The idea is planned. Uh, we'll see what happens. I think I haven't really looked. I haven't pulled old versions of Foundry VTT in like ever. So it just hasn't even occurred to me to do. So let's do it and let's.
Yeah, so the last time most of these versions were used was when they were released, which goes back 3 years ago. And to kind of start everything off, I'm curious. So, before we get into the software or any of that stuff, what is the deal with the Foundry name? Foundry seems to be something that you've used a lot. Like you had Foundry Tamriel, now there's Foundry VTT, and I'm wondering
Yeah,
what we've
yeah,
got
yeah.
coming up next.
I think there's no plans for any other foundries at the moment, but you never know. No, so I made some like fan sites back in the day for a couple of games that I loved, and that was kind of how I got started making techie things on the internet, and yeah, and so uh, my first. I haven't necessarily had the best luck with them, to be honest. So maybe they've kind of alternated. Actually, I would say.
Well, you've hit
The
the
first
jackpot now, so.
well, yeah. So, I first made a site called Amalur Foundry because I was really excited about this MMO in development from 38 Studios, like codename Copernicus, and it was going to be like this sort of like EverQuest WoW hybrid successor. It was going to be really exciting, and well, that went spectacularly wrong, basically. They did end up actually making a good game in the process of failing horribly, but they definitely like failed horribly in the end due to some financial mismanagement, which was really depressing. And so I was like making a site for that and kind of learning the ropes of building like a website and a fan community and stuff around it. And that didn't end up working out, not because the site sucked, but because of sort of everything else that happened. Oh, quick, before I go too much more, we're getting a couple requests for like more voice, less music.
Yeah, I
Matt.
just boosted you up by about
Okay.
15%, and I'll see if I can get the music even lower. I think I've got a click or two left before it's just off.
Probably leaving the music where it was and just boosting me was probably enough. But anyways, so yeah, did that, and then it sort of fell apart, and I was like trying to figure out what to do next, and I had some contacts and friends that were involved in the creation of Elder Scrolls Online from ZeniMax, and I kind of started, following that along and using that to channel my MMO passion. And so I created Tamriel Foundry as a successor site to try and keep the dream alive, and that ended up actually doing very, very well. We that site grew to be very popular for a while around the early, pre-launch and launch of the game. We made a bunch of cool stuff, videos, add-ons, all kinds of stuff for
Yeah, I
Um,
saw some old videos of you in the field interviewing people when I was looking up stuff for
yeah,
all of this, and I was like, sorry
yeah,
if that's too
the
deep of a
olden, the
dive.
way olden days. Yeah, and then from there, kind of used the Foundry brand a little bit as it related to a different VTT very briefly before I sort of forked off to start making my own. There was a virtual tabletop in development called GM Forge. Thought it was pretty cool. It had some nice ideas, and ultimately it didn't really do live up to its potential, unfortunately.
Which is a
But some
shame.
of the ideas it had were really nice, and so some of those ideas were ones that partially shaped the direction that I took with Foundry VTT.
That was going to be my
And
next question: is how did you get from Tamriel Foundry to Foundry VTT? So GM Forge led you to it, and then was
yeah.
was that where you got the idea for doing like Pixie.js and Electron, or was that stuff that you started looking for
So
ways
I'd
to
looked
do it?
into that sort of stuff previously, but there were some different canvas options, and GM Forge did use a sort of similar virtualization approach for webcam. It was also web-based, and so some of those technologies were ones that sparked some imagination there, although not exactly in the same way that we use them. Um, so, but yeah, it was a seed of an idea, working on that project, which ultimately was a little bit short-lived. But as things were kind of not necessarily headed in the best direction with that project, I wanted to capture some of those ideas and try and see if I could keep them alive in a different format. So I started just kind of coding around and playing around and building some stuff. And there was this sort of like very early on, like, holy shit moment of I can actually take a battle map and put a token on it and move the token around. Like, holy shit, it's viable.
What else do you need?
What else do you need? Yeah, so, I mean, the earliest versions of Foundry that were, completely very limited in terms of what they could do, but basically, like, I could move a token around on a map, and
That's a pretty good start.
that's a pretty good. Well, I mean, that was kind of the necessary start to prove out the concept, and
That's about all you can do with a piece of paper and a table anyway. So I think at that point you are a virtual tabletop, and then it's just
technically speaking, yes,
yeah.
Foundry was a virtual tabletop almost from day one.
How long did it take to get from that like first prototype of like, okay, I can move something around to legend has it that your first like post about it was I think in Kaora's Discord saying like, hey guys, I made this
Yeah, I
thing.
don't know if that was the first or not, but definitely, like, I just sort of like started, mentioning that I was dabbling in a couple of places, and folks were like, "Oh, that's cool." It was probably like well, I'm not accusing anyone of being patronizing. It was probably in a little bit of a slightly patronizing way. The way that, when someone shows up and says they're working on a project, it's like, yeah, that's cool. Yeah, you do you, you make that thing.
Let me know when it's an actual thing that you can use. And
Yeah,
I mean, like the idea of
yeah.
one guy showing up and being like, hey guys, I'm going to make a whole VTT is a little extreme.
There was probably a certain amount of hubris in the very premise of it, but I guess here we are. And yeah, so I started from very little and just implemented some super basic features at first, and then got to the point where I was like, actually, the rate at which this is progressing, if I sort of forecast forward, it's not going to be too long before this is actually like just as good to use as some, in my own opinion, just as good to use as some other options. So
That will remain unnamed.
that shall remain unnamed, because I was playing campaigns, running campaigns the whole time that this was going on. And so there was a kind of question of like, are y'all up for like just running these games in my own sort of like home cooked software. And I was very lucky to have some friends and players who actually said yes to that question against all odds, because without that, Foundry probably never would have existed.
Well, and you still
Because
do that.
yeah, well,
Running prototype software and
yeah,
making your players deal with it.
we always run the latest unstable version of Foundry in my Sunday game. Not that we recommend anyone else do that, but it is a little bit different in my case, because if everyone knows that that's what we're doing, and there are bugs that sometimes break our ability to have a great session, and sometimes I'm able to quickly fix those bugs, and sometimes the group just tolerates them and is a good sport about it. But that's not the game experience I want other people to have with Foundry. So
yeah, so everybody else stick with V9 for a little bit longer.
Don't do what do as I say, not as I do, I guess. I do like to sort of pre-alpha test the new version in a live game environment.
So early on, you were just forcing your close friends to deal with the software.
Yes.
How long did it take before you heard from somebody else who actually used it for a game, or did that happen pretty quickly?
So the timeline was basically I spent a couple weeks building what I just described of holy shit, there's a map and there's tokens and they're moving around. And a very basic sheet where you can enter some numbers to track how much hit points you have and stuff. And that came together very quickly. And so I started kind of dabbling and using it and trying to play around with some different things. And then, as it got to a point where I felt like this is looking like it's going to grow in a direction that is, going to be good for people who aren't just me.
Yeah.
I then put together a Patreon, because that seemed like a good way to have a place to share updates with people who actually can self-select into the community of people who are interested. Rather than just sort of screaming into the void on Twitter and be like, I'm making have a smaller community of people who sort of opt in and say, yeah, I'd like to learn more about this. And we set up a Discord quite early on too, so Discord has always been kind of
the hub
of talking about the project. And so yeah, I didn't let anyone else use it until probably about 3 months.
Okay.
So there was about 3 months of development that went in before I let anyone else really try it.
And was that one of the 01X releases, or was that
that was then the first sort of 0.1.x on Patreon.
And did it seem like it was mostly people that were fans of TTRPGs, or was it fellow programmers that were looking at it and being like, oh, this is an interesting project? Or that weird mixture?
At first it was mostly people who just like playing tabletop games, because while Foundry was developed from a very early state to be modular and designed for community developers to build and contribute onto, it wasn't that way, in version 0.
Right.
At least I don't think there was a concept of a module that you could activate and it could inject some extra code and stuff.
I actually know what version that was in.
When did that come?
It came in version 0.2.8, but there was no package list or anything like that. You just had to give it a manifest URL and then it would do things for you.
Yeah. So I mean, even from the very first version 0 of the software, that was the immediate direction that I knew we were going in. But at first there was no, API per se.
Right.
So I think the very first set of folks that were interested were mostly just people looking for some new project to follow that could give them something different than some of the frustrations that they'd had with existing solutions.
And it's a perfect segue that you started talking about modules, because my next question was going to be, was the intent always for Foundry to be as modular as it was? I think originally didn't D&D 5e ship with the
Yeah,
core
I mean,
software?
there was we didn't have multiple systems at first. We had like one very hacked together raw sort of D&D 5e built-in system.
Right.
But again, it wasn't long until that was not the case, because it was always the intention from the original design that it wasn't going to be a 5e product. It was going to be a system agnostic product. So it's not like we developed it for 5e specifically and then had to go change stuff. It's just that at first there weren't multiple systems because there was no one else developing anything for Foundry. I was the only person making anything, and I wasn't going to spend my time trying to add support for a bunch of different systems when there was a lot of other foundational work to do. And so I think that the like early 5e system was sort of bundled in as part of the software, and that actually continued for a while. I think we didn't unbundle it until sometime fairly much later, in order to just make it more direct for people to test. Honestly, there's probably still a good argument for certain systems to be bundled with the software, just for easing like the initial user experience of installing it and getting started. But ultimately, the part of the reason that was removed was just to try and be equitable for all game systems, and not necessarily to have like predisposed favoritism that like, well, D&D comes with Foundry, but some other system doesn't. You have to install it, because that, I think, treating all of the systems equally, it has some downsides for UX, to be honest. Like it would probably be helpful if a brand new user could just install Foundry and pop immediately into a game and start learning it. But that was some of the consideration why we actually unbundled it.
No, and that makes sense. And I'm just waiting now for all of the hot takes for which system should be
Something's
in
not
core.
wrong with my mic.
Oh no. Wow, really? I can hear you fine. Here, say something again. I just realized that on Discord someone just sent me a call. And I think that might have messed it up.
Maybe. We're being hazed.
Okay, can
I
you
don't know.
hear Atro again?
Do I sound fine to you, Matt?
Yes, you sound just fine to me.
Okay, so it's just an issue between your end and Twitch.
Okay, I think it was probably that phone call because everybody's saying that it looks fine now.
All right. Well, that was fun.
Yeah, we'll keep our fingers crossed. If that's the worst thing that happens during the stream, I guess my mic already wasn't on earlier.
Someone hit me with Moonbeam and forced me to reveal my true form.
So I think actually that might be as good of a time as any. We've talked about kind of the basics of how Foundry got started, how we got to the point where it is. It's always been this kind of modular open system, even if it included a little bit more stuff now. I don't think people are going to complain too much about removing the feature of 5e being included. We'll let everybody send in emails about which systems we should start adding to core in the future. Yeah. And promptly throw those in the trash. But we can jump into the first, well, not the first version of Foundry, but the...
Do we want to, before we go to V1, do we want to show we have a thing for people?
Yes. I completely forgot. Okay, let me jump to V10. Make sure that I've got these things enabled. Okay, and then I'm going to transition to our screen share, and hopefully this will be visible to everybody. Okay. So that should be out for everybody. Now, everybody knows that Dice So Nice is an amazing module for Foundry. It includes 3-dimensional dice, and it has a bunch of skins and themes and presets and things like that. So you can really customize it to match exactly what you want. And as part of our 2-year anniversary, and actually, do you want to announce it? I shouldn't be stealing all the glory.
Well, I mean, I don't think you'd really be stealing it, because I think that it was an idea that came from you and the team.
Okay, well, in that case, I will take my share of, how many people do we have now? 1/8 of the credit. And as part of our 2-year anniversary, we wanted to release something Foundry themed for everybody. And so if you check our exclusive package listing now, I actually may need to send Roman or Nath to go approve the package.
It's done. It's done.
Okay,
We did it.
good. If you
We did
come
it.
into Dice So Nice, you can check out your presets after you've installed the module and change over to the Rollsmith Foundry VTT dice. We worked with JDW and his partner from the Rollsmith to design a custom set of Foundry VTT themed dice that have these awesome like wrought iron metal casing with lava flows underneath it, and they just look really great. And we can send some test rolls out so everybody can see them. And a lot of people don't know this, but in Dice So Nice, if you start grabbing the dice, you can actually throw them around, and it's fun, and we can get a good look at all of the different faces. I'll see if we can get a nat 20 in here somewhere, because we do, of course, have our D20 with the anvil
I think
face.
I can make that happen.
There we go. We got at least one.
Did I not get any?
You
I
got-
didn't get any. I didn't get a single one.
Hopefully, that's how you roll against your players as well.
Yeah. Yeah, turn it to darkness. Make the scene dark.
Oh yeah, that's a good
that
point.
We'll get more
Oh,
contrast.
not that one. There we go. I swear I know what these buttons do. There we go. And they had this great kind of glowing lava effect that now that it's dark, you can start to really see it coming through. There we go, a nat 20.
Nice.
But anyway, that's just nice.
I should have configured some like special particle effects on Nat 20. I'll go into the
Oh yeah, and that is
DSN.
so for all you fans of Dice So Nice, be sure to go check out the package page for the Foundry VTT themed Dice So Nice. Oh yeah, we can actually make them a little bit bigger too. Let's
Yeah,
see.
I'm gonna do like we'll do a blaze particles on Nat 20. That'll look nice with this. Let's try that. Let's do 20 of them and see if I get any.
Here, I'm gonna...
Nope, not a single
Come
one.
on.
All right, come on.
You're-
Come on.
You're the statistics guy. What are the odds of this? There we
There
go.
we go. Yeah, that's nice. That like
Beautiful.
blaze particle works really well with these dice.
So we hope that you all get to enjoy those and that they're fitting for your game. I actually, and my wife's game, play a Warforged Forge Cleric, so these are kind of perfect for me as like a smith, fire, mechanical kind of being. So I promise it wasn't just a sneaky attempt to get some custom dice made for my character, but they do work perfectly for him.
Yeah, no, it's good. We're really happy with how they came out, and JDW and the Rollsmith team did a great job putting them together. We wanted to just do something that we could get made to help celebrate, that would be available to everybody, because if we did something like a physical thing or something, then we have to worry about shipping, and we can't offer it to the thousands of people in our community. So this was a way to give something that really like everybody can use. And I mean, well, you might not use Dice So Nice, but it's such a great module. Why would you not?
Exactly.
So, this is something that then everyone can have this extra special Foundry dice skin for their, for their games, and gives us all a little bit of a way to celebrate.
Yeah, so we hope that you all enjoy that. And now that you've gotten a little bit of a look again at V10, I think it's the perfect time to get a very contrasting view as to what V1 of Foundry Virtual Tabletop looked like.
Everything way shitty.
Now, a few things to take a look at before we even go is take a look at what's available over here in the tool list on the left-hand side, and even the icon up here in the top left, and what we've got available over here in the right-hand sidebar, because some of these things are going to go away or just change a little bit. So let's jump back to version 1. Now,
I think I need to go get the link. I have it. Wait a moment.
and this isn't
Whoa,
even,
what is this?
this isn't even the Foundry logo. So this was back when it was just an anvil, a die,
logo.
and a 20. And it wasn't an anvil with a die and a sub-anvil underneath it.
We went through a couple of variations of the logo. I think this is one of the logos where, like, when someone pointed it out, we then couldn't unsee it. The numbers are not right.
Yes.
If you compare it to an actual D20, the numbers aren't on the right faces. So that was kind of an embarrassing fuck up that like the early pre-release versions of Foundry had as a flaw.
Yeah, so if anybody looks at a D20 that you've got nearby, you'll see if you've got the 20 there, it should be a 2 and a 4, but we've got a 6 and a 10, I think.
We're doing it right.
But it eventually got fixed.
Yeah.
When somebody pointed it out. But this is what you would see when you launched Foundry for the not first time, because we've already got a world created over here, but it's actually like pretty similar to how it was originally, except you see the file path. You can still select your game edition. If you wanted to create a new world, you can still do that, but you don't get the cool like auto completing of the file path like we have now, thanks to some work that Kim did. And also back then, minimal world building as opposed to simple world building.
Ultra minimal world building. Yeah, I mean, maybe I should change the name back to minimal world building. I kind of like that.
It's for people who just like math, not
there's no modules. You couldn't install. Like there were different systems, but those different systems had to be like installed manually by knowing exactly where to put the files.
Yes, and it was hidden kind of with. Now Foundry has this nice like data path where there's your data, your config, and your other stuff, and then it's split into systems, worlds, and modules and everything. But back then it was all just part of the server folder structure in the public folder. But it worked pretty well for the time, and we'll see that. And actually, like, you can see you configure players on the world setup screen.
Let's go play. I want to go.
Here, let me give you a Game Master account real quick.
Okay.
And I will hit launch game session, and hopefully changing that didn't break anything. We'll see.
We'll see. No guarantees that version 0.1.7 does really anything correctly.
Okay. Let's see if I can get this to launch. Actually, I'm gonna... Oh yeah, I'm getting some type errors. Let me quickly rerun this. There we go. And there was no auto redirect back to the setup screen or anything like that. So we're seeing a few of the bugs that would later go on to be fixed. And let me launch the game. And...
Can we get it to work at all? That's the question. The answer may be no.
It worked this morning.
Oh dear.
Okay, let me do a quick new world real quick and see if that helps. Create world. I'm going to create an additional user for Atropos. Game Master. Launch game session.
We may have to just establish that at this point the software was literally unplayable. Oh no, I have the login screen. It's got a very sternly worded warning to make sure that I've got WebGL. Which does make sense, actually.
Okay. Let's see if I change this to game, if I can trick it to going forward.
No one like comes by this stream thinking they're gonna like see Foundry and they see this and that. Yeah, they're gonna be like, this is Foundry VTT?
I thought Foundry was supposed to be great. Yeah, someone raised a Control F5. Let's see if that can help. Or actually, let me also see if swapping this...
Yeah, I can't log into your world at all. I'm just gonna stop trying and let you try and figure it out.
Here, let me kill this, and I'm gonna try to launch with the other game system that we have, because maybe there's a problem with the... Or actually, let me title this Minimal World Building. Minimal game system, minimal world building, create world. Let me just launch and see if I can get into this. We may have to go to version 2 and start poking around there. Okay.
This is the Foundry V1. V0, yeah. Well, I guess V1, yeah. The V1 experience.
Here, I'm gonna check something in V2 and see if maybe we'll just start there. Okay, I'm able to get into V2. So maybe we'll start there. Okay.
That sounds reasonable. Let me go find your V2 link. Okay, so we're 0 for 1 so far. Version 1 didn't work, but maybe version 2.
Version 2.
At the time, I will say, historically speaking, at the time, version 1 was a usable, it was a usable experience. So
here, let me configure players, get you an account in here.
But time has maybe not helped us in regards of pulling like a multi-year-old version of the software. Who knows what's going on there.
So everybody knows what went into getting this set up was hunting down, because back then Foundry didn't have tagged releases, so you can't just like go and find a tag of 018 or something like that and have access to everything and be able to just install D&D 5e straight from the game system area or anything like that. I had to go digging through commits to find where version numbers changed, and then had to go hunting through the D&D 5e repo to find any D&D 5e releases from a similar time frame, pull those down and get them set up in the world. But you know what, in the end it worked, and I'm going to try to...
Man, this is pretty great.
Right?
I'm sold. Can we go back? The nostalgia factor is so real for me right now.
It was nice and simple back then. I don't know why we had to go and make everything so complicated. Let's see if we can get some...
Where's all the content, though? I thought we had some stuff.
We did. I think one of the worlds was not loading, but... Oh, I can partially demonstrate one of the features that came in the O2 dev cycle, which was video support, though it seems like maybe some...
Did that feature come in the O2 dev cycle? Did it, though?
The patch notes claims that it came through in this. Let me see if I can find where I've got...
You are using a WebM, which may...
Yeah,
at the time, it might have only supported more primitive video types. I don't know.
Oh, and I'm actually... Let me see.
I'm going to make a scene. I'm going to create one.
That would be great. I'm going to see if I can do the same thing, because for some reason they're not showing up in the file explorer. There we go. Oh yeah, there was not WebP support for images, it looks like. So I might need to run a quick conversion on this.
That's okay. I'm just making a map while we wait.
Yeah, there we go. And actually, for everybody...
Like it's a map, there's a token, the token's moving around. What else do you need?
Exactly.
This is great.
And one of the interesting things...
Matt's making walls.
That always drew people to Foundry early on was that it included door support. And one of the cool things here, I think, is that back in version 1, there was wall and door support, and there was support for invisible walls, so you had window support. One interesting thing that isn't in yet, I believe, is the ability to double click on walls to change them after the fact. So if you place a wall, you're stuck with that wall.
You had to delete it, yeah,
exactly,
to fix it. Although I will say, this is working pretty good. This is better than I thought it might be.
Oh yeah,
going back in the memory archives.
Everything.
I will say, I don't know, it might be because of the complexity of the walling and lighting system, but there's something about placing these walls that actually feels really smooth. It's like there's a certain amount of smoothness that we've actually lost along the way. And it probably has to do with just how much actual work has to happen when a wall is placed now.
Mm-hmm.
But I think this is a nice reminder of just I don't know. We should think about this. This is eye-opening for me.
It would be interesting to go back and see if maybe there was something.
Do you think that placing these walls feels pretty smooth compared to V10?
Let me see. Come through and start placing. And the nice thing is that I believe it was in the O2 dev cycle where this ability to control click walls to chain them got added.
Yeah, I noticed that this version does have chaining. Without it, you'd be in some big trouble. But
I don't know that it feels that much smoother,
probably
but
about the same.
it
But
definitely doesn't have that issue where sometimes your wall will go off in a totally like squiggly direction. But I think that bug is actually fixed. And
yeah, that one's fixed.
another
Yeah.
thing that you can see in this version that wouldn't have been there in version 1 if I'd gotten it loading is that when you hover over the endpoints of a wall, they're brought on top of all of the other areas of the scene and over the other walls, so you can get a better indication of what your
Like, why is the lighting all wrong? Like, oh my gosh, this is some bug. This lighting is not right at all. It's because Matt put me in a box.
Oh yeah, that's on me. And
Yeah, so like the token animates its movement smoothly, but the light like jumps directly to the final
Yes.
location. I remember that being something for a while where like we definitely didn't have like the lighting for a token or something doesn't come with the movement. But we did have actually, let me get rid of the grid now that we actually drew some walls.
oh, and another thing while he's doing that y'all can see is if you look in the toolbox over here, there's actually used to be a panning feature, like a default tool, so that when you left click, you panned around the screen. You can still right click to pan, but there is a dedicated tool for it. Why did you remove functionality from Foundry, Atro?
Oh my god. I don't know. I mean, I think that basically like the ability to always pan on right click sort of superseded the need to switch back to a dedicated tool that pans only on left click. We also didn't have things like the ability to pan with your keyboard in this version.
Oh yeah, trying to do control and arrow keys is just moving the token for me.
No, we didn't have any sort of keyboard panning. I think having the pan tool, honestly, I don't know. There's probably some people that would like there to be a pan tool, but it sort of seemed a bit unnecessary, the way that the software evolved over time. But yeah, I noticed that like, yeah, we have like ruler measured movement. It's a little bit jerky. It doesn't have some of the smoothness that it does today.
Yeah, and you can see the fog of war changing as you like get to each waypoint, but it is cool that you can see even back in version 1 that I can see your cursor moving around. I can see your measured templates, and exactly one of the things Foundry is obviously the most known for is its insane lighting engine, and you can see all the way back here that lights were a lot simpler. There were
They were a lot simpler, yeah. At that point, really, it was only a feature of illumination, and basically the way that lighting was working back at this time was that we'd basically just take your map and cover it up with partially transparent black, and how much black we put on, you know, depended on the position of lights and stuff. So like for a, you know, there's sort of solid black for you can't see this at all. There's sort of a dim black for it's, you know, a dim light outside of your field of view. There were just sort of different shades of transparency and black that was layered on top of the map, and that was like sort of the basics of the lighting system. So you couldn't have like different color of lights, you just had just illumination. There was no, you know, darkness sources or colored lights or anything. But as a basic approach, like this approach to lighting was working super well and was like so promising even in the like 0.2 era of play. Like this was like a type of experience that at the time, you know, I didn't have any problems using this for like running a campaign. You know, we had some character sheets, like I don't know if you've shown that on your side yet.
Yes.
The sort of old D&D, the old initial D&D character sheet. You know, we had tokens. Obviously it can maybe do a little bit better, actually pick a, you know, a token, a real token maybe.
And that's actually one of the interesting things that as I was going through the patch notes, I saw that like with major version updates of Foundry, it was like, I got through the M's of the spells, y'all, so you can almost finish putting together all of your characters.
Here's a fun little anecdote. This little token that I just found in this old world, this was the token that Marie, who's my wife, at the time we weren't married, but this was the character that she was playing in our little home game. This little gnome. And so, yeah, so this is a little blast from the past.
And I think from looking at some of the worlds that were shipping, or that were committed at least, that it looked like some of the characters from your personal games were like used for characters in the demo world.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't have time to make a demo, so I just like grabbed some shit from the home game and like threw it in. Yeah.
And you can still see all those character names popping up in Foundry videos throughout like the original release. Right. And one of the interesting lighting things is that you did have global lights back then. So if there's a wall in between you and one of these global lights, you can still see that area. So you had...
That's a feature? Oh, interesting.
Yeah, and it actually is working, and it's all pretty smooth and everything. And this is what we've got for the original D&D 5e character sheet. It's a like completely different structure.
It's pretty cool because in order to create these lights, you know, we did need to have an algorithm even very early on for doing like the polygon computation for like what's the area of the light. Like that algorithm has been dramatically improved over the years, but like being able to compute what is the area that a light occupies that respects the nearby walls, like that's not a trivial problem. And you know, it was something that a lot of work went on even like very early on in order to support that. We even have sound sources at this early level. Yes. So like I think probably that was a case of like as soon as we had lighting working, it was pretty trivial to then just use the same approach to adding some sound.
And I think, or actually no, I think it's the next version where a certain sound effect is added for the combat tracker, but we'll look at that later. But I just set up a quick sound. Let me bring Ricewin over here. Oh gosh, there it is. That was a little loud. Whoa. But
hostile.
There was none of the kind of like smooth gradient of sound.
You have like it's, you know, louder towards the center, quieter towards the edges. No ability for sounds to like move through certain walls, nothing like that. But yeah, we also had measured templates early on. That was another feature that was like, this was something that, you know, just things like these like measured templates and doors were just like really early differentiators, I think. Things that other systems or options like didn't really have, that were always pain points for me in playing the game. Like I really just want to know like how big this fireball is and who's hit by it. You know, doors was another obviously huge one that you know, playing
some places still don't have.
I don't know about that. But yeah, I think it's just something that like was just like a huge quality of life thing that we did from an early point. It looks like we have journal notes at this point as well.
Yes.
Some basic audio playlists. We even have compendium packs. That's pretty cool.
Yeah, and there's a nice, easy way to add folders for everything. You can create new journal entries, and I think it looks like back then it was already using TinyMCE, so that's been a through line up until V10.
Up until just now, yeah. Yeah. I mean, the thing is, it's almost surprising like how many features did exist at this point. And there is some like philosophical reasons for that, I think, is that, you know, when you have a completely blank canvas to just create something, you can move super fast. You don't have any users that you're worried about, like, how's this going to work for them? How's this going to change their experience? Just anything that pops into your head, you just do it.
And there's no migrations.
So, yeah, it was just sort of a totally frictionless development environment to like make something utterly unencumbered by any sort of prior obligation. And that's something that just, you know, I wouldn't say for better or worse. It is for better, but that is not the case today. You know, we have to be a lot more thoughtful and principled about the types of things that we change. And while we are still making really huge changes to the software, there is this just curve of like all of this low-hanging fruit of things that can be done very quickly, you know, at a pretty high degree of quality, but then like polishing them and making them better becomes a huge undertaking, a huge effort, you know, from then onwards.
No, definitely. And I mean, that was one of the things that shocked me as I was looking through things. I was like, okay, there was already measure templates, there was already tiles that you can place. I just placed one. There was already options for hiding individual tiles. There's options for making a character hidden. Even just adding hidden combatants in the encounter tracker is already in Foundry in 02.10. And that feature set, like, I saw your kind of, I don't mean obsession in a bad way, but your obsession with like an abstraction where a function can be applied to multiple different things at once, where you reworked everything so that basically every placeable can be made hidden, every placeable can be resized, every placeable can be copy and pasted somewhere else or something like that. And that's all stuff that's in here already. You can copy and paste token data. You can do the same thing for tiles, and like, it's working. And the ability to handle groups of things. I forgot that I'm on the panning tool, but if I select both of these tokens, you can click on them, add them to the combat tracker, and they both go in from a single click, which was not something I could show not working in version 1, which I wanted to haze you for, but you got it in pretty quickly afterwards.
Well, I remember at the time that just, you can imagine how active even actives like per capita, I would say, the little Discord was, because, you know, Foundry had gotten to this point where it's actually like a very usable VTT. And so even at version 0.2, there were people that were, you know, starting to use it. And you can imagine how many suggestions and ideas, like the fire hose started very early, of things that people, you know, wanted the software to do or thought that it should do. And, you know, that definitely started to guide some of the further design from there. But yeah, I love like the cursors. That's another thing we had almost from like version 1, which we didn't get to show. Like, I just insisted that I wanted to know where other people's cursors were. That was something that was super important to me. But yeah, I guess maybe we should move on in the interest of time, because we've got many other versions to show. But I think this was nice as sort of like the oldest version that we could actually get to work.
Yes.
To pause here for a bit and sort of see that even at this early stage, it certainly had a lot of, you know, a lot to say for it in terms of being recognizable as Foundry VTT.
And I will say,
there was a request I saw in Twitch about maybe if you could show the sidebar. Oh, yes. It looks like you've recropped it or something.
Yeah, I just saw that was not visible. Sorry about that. I have a very big monitor, but it's not big enough for me to have Twitch, OBS, and everything open at once. And OBS also silences all my notifications. So if people are pinging me about things, I apologize. I'm not trying to ignore you. But yeah, this is the basics of
a stream to run, folks. let's move to V2 or V3. Do we have some like pre-ready content in V3, or should we like try and export this scene and pull it in or something?
There should be pre-ready content in V3. You can feel free to export it just in case. Okay, yeah, so I'm over.
I don't think that's a thing I can do.
Oh, is there not? Oh, maybe that's... oh yeah, exporting was not included just yet. There is an option for seeing scene notes and stuff like that, but we're going to hope that my preparation actually wound up working. But getting over to V3, this is the first time where like you see the modern Foundry interface. You have everything split into data and module folders and
In terms of the
systems,
setup.
yeah, you've got a proper setup here.
Yeah.
Installing through a system is still through a manifest URL. Minimal world building is still around. It's the same thing for the module installation, but you can update from inside the software and not from inside of a Foundry world.
Yeah, that was a big change, is enabling this sort of setup experience. Although what really this highlights is how long we've had this same basic approach to setup. And having this approach to what the setup menu looks like ever since version 3, and we're now into 10. I think everyone on the team shares the feeling that like this is a page of the software that is really due/overdue for a sort of comprehensive redesign. And so I don't want to guarantee that's going to happen in V11, but I think no one out there should be shocked if this setup page looks very different in V11. I think it's served us well ever since version 3, a long time. But I think that we're past due on making the setup experience have a different set of functionality, a different approach.
Well, and that's where some of the now comes in. Kaora's on the team now and did awesome work on the new homepage, which I'll just show people. Oh, I should hit enter at the right time. There we go. We have a great new homepage with a bunch of information on it that looks, in my opinion, much better than the original site, which wasn't bad, but it's nice having some more imagery, some more variations in colors and all that stuff. But this isn't a stream about the website. Let me get back to our 5e demo, and I think this account has a password, or maybe it doesn't. Maybe I got rid of them all. Let's see.
I bet I know what the password is.
Oh, this might be, there we go. I got it.
Nice.
Okay, and this one definitely has...
Which one should I log in as, Andrew?
Yes, though, actually, let me set that up as a Game Master account real quick for you.
Oh my gosh, weather effects?
Yeah.
Holy shit, Foundry's awesome.
You heard it here, folks. Foundry is awesome. But this is the first demo world that kind of went out with Foundry, and it has a ton of content. Did you make all of these maps? These look like maps that you made.
Not this one.
Okay.
I did make a number of these maps. Of the ones that are up in the
I believe
top,
you did Madrazo's, because I think this map is in your map pack.
The two that I didn't make is this one, Winter Ambush. This is an early Forgotten Adventures map, one of their first. And then Farnos, which is a region map, is done by Kaora, whose work I shamelessly cribbed off of from the very early days, and finally have gotten him to join us in a more official capacity.
Though actually this Farnos map is a good demonstration of something that was added in this version, which is all of these hexagonal grids with variations.
Yeah.
If we pop open the scene configuration, this version came with gridless, square, and the 4 variations of hexagonal modes that we've still got to this day, and also has the kind of like classic very long scene configuration window that I think probably most people who got started with Foundry are used to before it went to its new tabbed approach. Yeah. But that's just one of the many things that got added in this version. There's also weather effects. Oh, this map for some reason didn't load, but we've got this one where you can see the snow effect going over everything, and I believe, yeah, there's a mission angle got added to lights. You can now add tint colors to lights. Doesn't look quite as pretty as modern Foundry lighting, but hey,
I think the menagerie will be a great example of some ugly early lighting, maybe.
There is a lot of lighting on here. And I believe, yeah, there's just those 2 options, but let me get back to a token view. The panning mode is gone. Now, did people bully you to get rid of the panning mode, or did you get rid of that because you didn't want it?
I feel like that probably was like something that I did controversially and then had to like fight with the community about. I don't know.
Do you
I'm
think
not
that
sure.
might be one of your first controversial decisions, or do you remember the first time where the community was like, add this back in?
I had many little hills that I was prepared to die on. I still do, although I think maybe,
They're much
you
bigger
know,
hills now.
I'm not there may be some bigger hills, but fewer of them, and maybe I'm not quite as dogmatic about some things.
But maybe
Um,
more dogmatic about other things.
I think like one thing that's funny is that I fought tooth and nail to avoid adding like a left click the empty space on the map to release your token.
Yes.
I like fought almost to the death to not do that because I felt that just an errant left click shouldn't cause you to, you know, to lose control of your character. I thought it should have to be a more intentional gesture to, you know, to get rid of it. I noticed all the commoner tokens that aren't in our data world, they're all just transparent.
Oh, well, that's
But
good. At least people can see them and they can just see all the ones that are still there.
yeah, but now I feel like, you know, that was something that eventually was the right call to make. Eventually, probably should have happened sooner. I'm sure there's stuff the other direction where I
Refused to add.
refused to concede a point. I'm trying to think if there's any in particular. I mean, I know like limiting the maximum folder depth is something that I've kind of stuck pretty dogmatically to, although it's something that could be increased. I know some folks would like it to be increased. I mean, there's probably so much that goes into like the way that Foundry does things that is pretty like dogmatic. But the lighting at this point was like very additive. So like
Yes.
make a bright light. It like sort of washes out everything under it. Now it is the right color, I guess. You know, it does make a light with the appropriate color. You could only go up to 0.5 maximum because then you wouldn't be able to see anything else underneath it. At the time, I was like, "This is the greatest. I can colored lights, not just illumination. I can have color in the light as well. This is fantastic."
I mean, for the time, because you have to keep in mind that this was like a late 2019 release, and thinking about what other software had available in 2019, like this is pretty crazy. And one of the things that you can see with all of these lights, and if you change to the wall layer, is terrain walls are in.
Yeah, we had terrain. Yeah, this was the first version that had terrain walls.
There's terrain walls. There's wall
I was super
direction.
proud of that.
Like, it's a crazy feature, and it's one that like is still one of my favorites to show people. It's walls and lights. That's Foundry's like marketing department, is the walls and lights, and it's only gotten better. And it's crazy to think that like back in 0.3, because we're on the latest version of 0.3.9, but early on in this release cycle, one-way walls got added, terrain walls got added, which means for any crazy people that are here, not because they use Foundry, but just because they found it, a terrain wall means that a token can see past the first instance of a terrain wall, but not past the second, which makes it so that you can see objects that have been placed on the map like this, but not beyond them, which gives you a very cool effect. And
We still have the like instantaneous sight update where like your token moves gradually, but sight just jumps.
Unfortunately, I
don't
think
know
we'll have
when
that
we're
for
gonna get rid of that.
three more versions, I think.
Yeah, we've got a ways to go still with that. I see people joking about my menagerie map and some official D&D adventures that this far predates those.
Yes.
I ran a sort of creepy carnival menagerie plot line for my home game, and so this was a map that I made for that.
I was curious if you remembered much of the quests that were going on in some of these. Like,
Yeah, absolutely. I remember in detail.
who was doing the ambushing in Winter Ambush? Was that a player ambush or?
Winter Ambush was not used in my home game.
okay.
That was a scene that I pulled in specifically for the demo. So that one, not all of these scenes were from the home game, but
Oh, and another thing that I believe got added in this, let me open up. We have an early journal entry talking about the community Discord server, but one of the cool things that you can demo with this is that show players got added.
Yes, there's the journal entry. You've just shown it to me.
Exactly. So you can see that. Now you can double click on applications in the header and they'll minimize or maximize, which I use all the time.
Nice.
And then I think before now, I don't think that there was a limit on the amount of folder depth that you could have. And this version added a folder depth restriction of 3.
I screwed people over with that. I took their fun away.
So I ask you once more, Andrew, why did you take a feature away from me?
Yeah, I don't know. Maybe as a concession, we should just boost folder depth up to like 4.
I think people would go wild.
You think? Is 4 too many though? 4 feels like too many.
We'll give them 3.5. They can just jut something out a little bit.
Well, 3 feels right. 4, that's just getting a little bit too crazy.
How greedy are people going to be that they want 4 folders from their VTT?
That was my thought, right? Who could possibly want 4 levels of folder depth? I don't think, no one that I would associate with, I think would go that deep. We have images on journal entries.
Yes, that's another thing.
You might have had that last time. I don't remember.
I believe featured images either got added at the end of 02 or at the very beginning of 03. But we do have these. You can swap between the featured image, the normal image. Secret blocks got added. And dynamic now document then entity links were added. So you can drag and drop things into journal entries and link them dynamically. And it all, well, actually, maybe it's not working for me to do here. Maybe you have to write it out. I can't remember what the note said, but you can see that the old entity link style existed. It was the same basic data ID, and you can...
I'm not sure it had drag and drop, and I think that something hasn't like migrated properly in terms of like the HTML surviving the process of editing.
That is possible.
But yeah, you know, I think, yeah, it doesn't look like you can drag and actually, yeah, you can't drag and drop. So yeah, it was you had to sort of specifically write out your link, you know, at the time. But and the beginnings of that interlinked content system were coming into play.
And then another interesting thing that got added for tokens is that tokens got wildcard image support in 03, so you could suddenly have a bunch of...
got some ambient sound here in the bar. I like it.
Yes, so here, let me click on our bar keep and...
Sorry, I'm causing you to jump around.
Oh, that's
and
okay.
We have volume easing now. I'm sorry, I'm going off script. Matt, you take over again.
No, that's okay. That's exactly why you're here, to reminisce and remember and get excited by some of this stuff. And one of the other things which you and I can both do now is control the volume to our own preference. Originally it was GM only. Now players have options to access playlists, ambient, and interface audio. And actually, there's a feature that let me go to Winter Ambush and see if I can get this to work. I'm gonna add some of these characters to the combat tracker and begin the combat and see if I can get... Actually, since I'm a GM, this may not happen, but the basics is when it was your turn in the combat tracker, you'd get this epic drum beat of like a boom, 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 boom effect coming through to let you know that it was your turn.
Yeah, is that happening for you?
I don't think so. I think it might be because I don't technically own any of these tokens as the GM. Actually, let me...
Yeah, it might have just been an alert for player tokens, or maybe you have the interface volume slider turned down. Okay. It looks like for the master, it looks like there is some sort of brokenness. Let me try creating... yeah, no, I can't even create an actor. So it looks like something about the combination of the 5e version that is pulled down for this maybe is not quite the right one or something. There's some issues with character sheets. They were working in the previous version, but one of the things that was tricky for Matt with architecting this is not only did he have to pull the old Foundry code, but he had to figure out like what system data to pull and like how to get a world that was like from that appropriate era.
Yes.
And that was probably a bit of a hard task.
And one other thing, since I couldn't get that sound effect to play, I think at least demo this. Let me see, is I believe alt dragging. Yes, if you alt drag a token onto the scene, this got added in this version, it will come through as invisible. So you can sneakily add things to the scene if you want to. This wasn't added in this version, but something we didn't talk about. There was already status effects for all of the token placeables and stuff like that. In this version, you did get access to the token configuration through the setting gear, and you also got a input area for changing the elevation of tokens, and you now get a little indicator on tokens that are elevated. And now in the latest version of Foundry, that's starting to actually have some mechanical impact on what's happening in the canvas.
Yep.
So still getting feature expansion for stuff that was in back in 0.2.
Yep, that's right. Another thing that I remember we did early on was, I don't think it was necessarily this version, might have been earlier, but like the differentiation between like the big status effect icon and the little one.
Yes.
That's something that was like pretty much like a hallmark feature early on.
And actually a lot of people don't even know that if you left click on one of these icons, you get a small version of it, but if you right click on it, you get a much larger version. So there's a free tech tip for you for anybody that didn't know how to do that.
It also looks like
drawing tools also got added.
Drawing tools, yeah,
that's whole new layer for people to use and abuse. Oh wait, that did not stick. Maybe I need to hit enter or something. Oh no, there we go. That time it
tools
started.
was something that we added reluctantly, because I was sort of, I wouldn't say against it, but I was like kind of scared of what it might entail, because just it is sort of a big and complex system. And actually, while we were working on this version version 3, Eunice Kakaroto,
Yes.
now the proprietor of the Forge, was doing some cool things with like prototyping how drawings might work. And he approached me with his prototype and his idea. I think maybe it was like initially a feature in like a module he was building. I don't recall the exact timeline, but we worked together to kind of take his ideas and implement them in a way that was maybe a bit more like consistent with the way that other objects in the Foundry environment were set up. And that was like, I think, one of the first examples of like a significant feature that got added to Foundry that was really driven by like community development, sort of proving the concept, and then us working with that developer or working independently to take that idea and to sort of build it into the core software.
And it definitely wasn't the last, and it wasn't even the last time that Kakaroto had a feature.
Yeah, no,
because
he's had a couple of things in that category.
The other being something that's not in yet because Kakaroto hadn't worked on it yet is AV, I think, right?
Yeah, that's right. Audio video was another one that he prototyped initially, and then it's had a number of iterations over the years since then. But
and
it also looks
now,
like maybe, unless I just missed it in version 2, it looks like maybe rollable tables might be a new thing.
Yes, I believe so. And so we actually have a couple in here. Like we've got a magic sword of awesome, which I'm sure your players loved when they were able to get it, if they were able to get it.
That was not an item from the... My home games were a bit more serious in terms of the depth of lore. This was just some sort of proof of concept.
What's unserious about a magic sword of awesome?
Magic sword of awesome.
It sounds seriously awesome.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's rollable tables. There's also, on top of being able to show journal entries and all that stuff, you can also view and show token artwork to players and stuff like that. So you can introduce a villain and get everything going very quickly. And drawing tools already had like z-index options. You had the ability to lock them, hide them, just like a whole bunch of other placeables. Let's see. We already looked at lighting a little bit. And I think that's all that I've got for all of the major things from this version. So if we want,
Yeah, that looks about right.
we can jump, as if that's not enough features for version 3. You can, anybody who has been a fan of Foundry can tell that the density of updates will never go down. They will always be jam-packed, even when it's just one person working on it.
Yeah.
And then,
so should we jump ahead?
I think we actually need to jump to version 5, because as I was loading things and making sure that everything was working, some issue happened, and I don't know if this is because I'm running like 10 different Foundry servers right now, or if something went wrong with the npm install, like some package got deprecated or something. But version 4 is, for whatever reason, not loading for me.
Version 4. We don't talk about version 4.
Version 4 was a dark time, but there were a lot of cool things that got added. But I'll jump over to version 5 real quick, and we can see that everything's still pretty much the same. I don't think that there... Oh, there was the earliest version of the package system in version 5. So you can actually go through and still see the very, very, very old packages that were available. It looks like we had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
Where's this data coming from?
I think it's using either the site or
Is this using the website?
I don't know. I'm not
It must be. I mean, I can't imagine this data is coming from anywhere else. Is this like the systems on the site that still declare compatibility with 0.5?
I think so. And some of these systems are like Fate Extended is still a game system, and it still works in V10. And you said you didn't want to do it, but I did it anyway. Before this stream, I brought a character from version 1 all the way to version 10, and you know what? It worked.
I don't know. Yeah, I can't. I mean, this data must be coming from our website. This must be systems that still... I'm going to go look at like the Starfinder version, like Starfinder system on the website, maybe.
Yeah, I was just able to install Fate Extended, and it looks like localization wasn't in yet, because the system defines like English, German, French, Spanish, Italian, Chinese.
Okay, so Starfinder does have a version listed that's compatible with 0.5 still. So that's, I guess, why some of those systems do show up as available to be installed.
Yeah, I'm installing Starfinder right now. So this is a 2 to 3 year old version of Foundry where you can still install and access game systems and modules. And the module listing is still here. And because Mad Cartographer, I don't think put the most accurate version numbers that were compatible with his packs. You can even see a recent Mad Cartographer pack that's available.
That's what you call backwards compatibility.
But there's a ton of packages that are available in the module installer here.
Obsidian,
yeah,
our Kim's own brainchild.
That was actually, so there was one person who made a commit to the D&D 5e system before Kim, but I don't know them, so I don't want to give out their username or anything. But in November 2019, Kim, who is now a staff member for Foundry VTT, submitted his first commit to the 5e game system, and to this day keeps making 5e better and better with like the class advancement system and a ton of other stuff.
I see a very early version of Dice So Nice.
Really? That was around in 05? I guess, yeah.
We could install it and see what the first version of Dice So Nice 3D Dice looks like.
There we go. I've got it installed. This was back when I think Simone was still doing the development for it, who I also did development for a bunch of other great
their
modules.
First versions list 0.5.5 to 0.5.7 as compatible.
You love to see it. And this version has a better update process. There used to be like update keys that you'd get, and you could select alpha, beta, or release.
The secret strings.
Yes.
The secret ways of how to access Foundry VTT.
And this still has basically the exact same world menu, which we'll probably get updated eventually. But let's launch the world and jump in. One thing that I'm both happy is not there and upset is not there is the return to setup menu or option. We get a lot of people who get confused about return to setup and their administrator password, and we're working on some fixes for that. But back then, I bet you didn't get any emails asking you.
Didn't get any emails. Can you create a user account for me on this version?
Yes. Let me jump in real quick. Oh, this is one where I'm going to have to fix one of the background images because this version did not have overhead tiles, so obviously the maps that we've got that are configured and reliant on overhead tiles don't work the same way, but I thought that it would be a funny indication of the new features if I left it without the walls.
To the top of my cabin.
You hadn't added overhead tiles yet, so where were...
You decapitated my cabin.
I guess I can still add the roof tile.
What happened to the maps from the last demo version?
You did not ship those any longer.
Okay. I didn't make them available to you.
No, so I had to, I pulled in the Atropos battle map pack and pulled those in. And shockingly, even though those were made in like V9 and V8, I think, even back in 05, everything works pretty much as you'd expect. There's still terrain walls and all that stuff. The one thing that didn't come over, and I think that's because of some changes to how walls got handled, was one-way walls didn't come through, but pretty much everything else did. And this is 4 versions before when
so
these maps were made.
Actually, this version does actually have one-way walls. You can now click on a wall to configure it.
It was in, but I think you changed the data structure for it. So the current data structure for it didn't transfer back, but I think it was 03 where they actually got added. But this is probably where the majority of the audience who's watching this...
I'm enabling dice, sorry.
Oh, that's all good.
Just forced you to refresh. I just want to see if it works.
They do.
My God. It's beautiful.
That's the beauty of Foundry, everybody. And there's 3D dice settings in here. It's much less full-featured than the current version is. But even back then, you could...
It does, though, really sort of look a lot like current Foundry, I think, at this point.
Oh, yeah. Basically, the entire user interface, other than cards and the new icons, are basically in.
I don't remember if the last version we showed had the hotbar at the bottom, but I don't think so. I think that's an addition here.
Oh yeah, so going back to the 03 tab real quick, we did not have a macro hotbar, and that might have been added in 04, but if it wasn't, it is in now, as well as the macro directory that you can access down here. Long gone is the pan button. All of the basic controls that you're used to in Foundry are here. All of the wall types.
Looks like the macro hotbar was V4. We also in V4 added AWS S3 support and Mac support for the Electron version. We used to just have only Windows for the Electron build.
So rude.
Plus Node.js for Linux.
And also new in this version, consistent with your focus on lighting rework every version. This version had like a ton of new lighting features, including like darkness levels, so you can apply an ambient darkness to scenes.
Let's see it.
Let's get this scene.
Let's make this night. Let's make this nighttime.
There we go.
It's less delicate.
It's a little purple.
It's a little purple. It's, it's less good than what we have today, but
but it's still perfectly serviceable. And again, for the time, it looks great. And you can see that there's now some of this gradual fall off on the lights that are getting placed.
Really bad performance on it, I think, the way that it's done. I think it's really inefficient. Still having the sudden jumps, no like smooth animation.
And that soft shadow performance issue is exactly why this enable soft shadows option got added to the core software settings.
It option. Still, yeah, still jumpy token movement. We don't have smoothness there yet, but the lighting was definitely coming into its own at this point.
Yes, and
Let me
now
see if the colors are still as garish. Yeah, still garish. We moved from like that additive approach to a multiplicative approach, which actually this is like much nicer for a map like this one, but it doesn't like wash it out as much as it used to. But it had some really tough side effects, especially for like darker maps. On a light map like this one, if I'll turn it back to day, I remember the lights from this generation look actually really nice because they're just using sort of a multiplicative blend, which was good for lighter maps, but just like so little flexibility in terms of like how to make.
And in terms of flexibility, you also added light opacity, so you can kind of like change the intensity of the light, and you also added a darkness threshold, so these lights can turn
Lights that can't come on once you reach a certain darkness level.
exactly. So you
It
can
used to just be a threshold, now it's a range.
yeah, so it's even more functional now than it was then, but it was an awesome introductory feature. When I saw a video of like lights coming on as it turned to night in a town, it kind of blew my mind. And there's just like a ton of other small things in here, like you can open a character sheet with C. We've also now got like the D&D 5e character sheet. Things are where you expect them to be. The compendium packs are completely finished, they're filled out. You can build a character basically the same way you can now, other than we've now added support for like background features and other things like that. But you can see that
this is starting to look much more like the experience we have today, and then also sheet customizability.
Yes.
Sorry, I guess you were saying.
Oh no, feel free. I'm just kind of like bouncing around between a list of things. And then what was another? Oh, I have a note that it looks like let me find just any image. I'll just place this as a thumbnail. You can drag and drop tiles from the file browser.
Yeah, we added the tile browser.
Yes, so instead of having to drag out the size of an image and then hunt for the file path you wanted to use, you can just drag and drop them directly onto the scene, which is a much nicer use case. And also, I think if you're on a different one and you drag it onto the scene, it'll change you to the tile browser, which is kind of like a small thing, but something that I like anyway.
Yeah.
Oh, and I can kick you if I want to. Goodbye.
Oh, how dare you? I've been booted.
This is my show now. But that's just...
You only kicked me, though. You didn't ban me. So.
Did you add banning yet? Oh, yes, you did. So I could fully ban you. And there's also support. So if I go to Forest Cabin... Oh, I shouldn't have activated it. I'll toggle navigation on Forest Fort, come back. You can individually bring players to a scene now. So
pulling players, yeah, nice.
So that's another excellent feature addition, and all of the normal stuff that you love about Foundry was pretty much in by this point. Now, I think that's all of the main features that came out in 05, so we can jump
module to management. I don't know, like the ability to enable specific modules and stuff.
Oh yeah, there is our manage modules page, which actually I think is in a previous version.
Yeah, that might have been in a previous one. Certainly in some of the early versions, once the module system like first was implemented, I think at first it's like if you had a module installed, that module would be active. It's like the act of installing a module was akin to activating a module. And then at some point we added more like management at the world level to choose like which modules I want in active for this world, but not others.
Yeah, and actually there's still the community wiki and everything in the sidebar and view documentation, though it is kind of funny seeing the new homepage in with a much older version of Foundry loaded in an
Yeah.
iframe.
Yeah. Continuity breakage.
Yeah, it's a sign of things to come in the future.
Yeah.
There we go. And I think that's everything for 05. Oh, one other thing was inline dice rolling.
Yeah, adding those to journal entries.
So I think that's just bracket /R1D20. So, oh wow, the dice are so much smaller. Or maybe that's just a setting that I have set up right now. But
setting that actually is interesting that they are smaller.
I wonder if there's.
I kind of like that. I'll have to go poking around in the DSN settings and see.
Okay, so there was still a scale, and it still defaults to 75, which I think is what it is now. Maybe there was some change to the logic on how it worked.
Maybe.
There we go.
Yeah.
I like them nice and big.
I got a little D20 just then. So I don't know. Yeah, but inline rolls, that's good.
Yeah, and I believe by this point, drag and drop of document links, or at the time entity length, were still there.
Yeah, so more work had gone into the journal at this point.
And so all that works very well.
We're still on the old logo though.
Oh yeah, with the kind of like sharp edges around and the 20 in the center.
Yeah.
That deserved its whole own release, I think. Just popping that to a new one.
Let's go to the
V6. And yeah, it's still the same game system and add-on module installer. Let me launch this world and then get you a character.
So V6 was a pretty significant milestone.
In a lot of ways. You added a ton to the software, but you also added your first team member, I believe.
Yes, important in those ways as well, but also probably most importantly, V6 was the release version.
Yes.
Am I player 2 in this example?
You should be. You may have loaded in before I'd updated it. I think it should say Atropos now.
Got it. Okay.
There we go. Oh.
We still have some legacy maps.
Yes. And I can pull in some more.
Yeah, pull in some different maps maybe, so we don't show the same ones. Here. Although you don't have the module installed. We'll have to give you a second.
Oh, I have it in the modules folder at least. It may just not have a compatibility set correctly. But tell us what it was like in the last couple weeks as you were preparing to do the full launch.
Yeah, preparing to get Foundry released was very chaotic. The months leading up to that, I had to divide my attention between finalizing the functionality of the software and building the website, because there was no website for most of the development process. Building the website was something that kind of was a bit of a scramble leading up to release, but it got done. I needed a place to sell Foundry licenses, and so the website got built. All of that got put together, but at the same time there were new features that were being added in V6. I'm trying to remember like what some of those flagship features were. I think that to a significant extent, V6 probably was like pretty feature light compared to previous major versions, because there was just so much
other stuff to do
on other stuff that needed to happen. Like, we were trying to get the product launched. We needed to create like a website knowledge base. Shane, our first, our sort of founding team member after myself, joined the team during that time and was helping with sort of the pre-launch process and building out the initial knowledge base and all kinds of just craziness that was like so much to manage, getting people like sort of not really sunsetting the Patreon, because we still run it and we still do some stuff there, but like making it clear to everyone that like Patreon is no longer going to be the way to access Foundry. You're going to have to buy a license. But we did, for those of you who may not know, I think we implemented what I felt was a pretty generous policy of letting people who had supported on Patreon get the software at a significant discount, if not completely free. That still exists today, so anyone who's been supporting on Patreon can get a substantially discounted version of the software. But like making that discount system work, making sure the purchases, I was a complete nervous wreck going into the initial days of release.
But you did manage to get a few new features, and there's token tenting came in this update, added the ability to install worlds, so any pre-packaged worlds, people would be able to install them, and I think in this version it was the first time that scene dimensions got set automatically when you added an image.
Perhaps. I think that was earlier, to be honest.
Okay.
But I'm not certain. Yep, being able to tint a token. That's a very simple feature.
Yes.
Hardly worth mentioning though. Probably was like, 10 minutes of development.
But hey, it's still 10 minutes that happened while you were also building a store, transitioning a Patreon, and starting to make Foundry into a real product. What was it that made you want to, at that point, change from Patreon to a final product that people can buy?
And I think there was a lot of sort of agonizing over when should this software be released, and a lot of different opinions from the community as well. Opinions that I definitely spent a lot of time thinking about. I think I knew, and the community knew, that the software was not 100% done and 100% polished. But what should the target be in order to, in good conscience, start accepting money from customers? I think that was like really the question to struggle with. And yes, I was accepting money on Patreon, but that's kind of a little bit different, because it's like I'm accepting money for the purposes of development. I'm accepting money to people who wanted to show support for the process of building the thing. It's a little bit different to accept a payment for the license and then to give someone a piece of licensed software that you want it to credibly work. You want to believe that it does what it works as advertised and whatnot. And so that was a tough call. I think that we certainly could have taken a more conservative approach there. Like we could have delayed the launch for substantially longer. I think honestly that what's coming together with V10 right now, it sort of feels like V10 could have been version 1.0. V10 could have been like the launch version of the software. But
don't say 1.0.
Yeah, well, that's a dirty word. But at that point, what would we have sacrificed by waiting 2 more years to just develop in our own enclave? I think it was just a really hard choice, and I think that to a certain extent, just getting it out there was a sort of forcing function that caused some priorities to shift in terms of like what's important and when. It's something that needed to happen, and so there was a lot of agonizing over that, and we didn't launch with all the features. Like I had a big list of things that I thought Foundry VTT should do and should have. And there's a number of things on that list that we didn't add yet. There's some things on that list that we added after release, but before today. There's some things on that list that we still haven't added at all. And so, in terms of like feature completeness of Foundry VTT, we weren't there. We're still not there.
Never will be there.
Never be there. And so, there is a question about like when should we release this thing?
I mean, it makes
And
sense to do the release when you did, because if you think about it, if you'd still been doing Patreon to this day, there's a good chance that a lot of what's available in Foundry wouldn't be, because it's likely that you'd still be working on it on the side with
yeah, it would have
nobody
still
else
been
helping.
a side thing instead of something that I switched to doing, full time.
And then adding
That
3 more developers onto the team certainly is going to expand the speed at which you can keep getting all this awesome stuff out.
Yeah, yeah, that's right.
And I'm happy you did it when you did it, because it dovetailed perfectly with kind of the world falling apart in a lot of ways and people being forced to.
Certainly not intentional.
No, I don't. I'm not claiming a conspiracy that you started it or anything, but people can get in the comments about whether or not that happened.
Well, we made the decision of when we were going to launch before, before any sign of any sort of pandemic or anything. We'd already committed at that point that like this is going to be our launch date.
Oh yeah, it definitely it had been announced beforehand. I didn't want to say anything like that. It just did wind up being coincidental or good timing for everybody else who was trying to find a way to deal with how awful everything was at the time.
Yeah, it worked out in a way for us to provide a tool for people who were then immediately needing to figure out how to move their games online. And so the timing there did work out in that regard. Yeah.
And the timing of that, I mean, for me personally, like this is when I started getting into Foundry, was late 05, early 6, and started looking at things, and it made it so the game that I was running, I was able to get my best friend who had lived miles away for a long time to join our game again, which he hadn't been able to do for years. And at that time, it was like an amazing relief to be able to get together with friends in a safe and fun way to keep doing stuff like this.
Yeah, for sure.
But that's enough reminiscing on 06, I think, since this was a pivotal release, but not the most feature-rich one. We can jump over to 07X, and I'll start setting up some other scenes over there. And I believe this is when we start getting the package manager as it exists now with...
Yeah, it's interesting because post-release, versions 7, 8, and 9, so big.
Yes.
Those and 10 again, so big. The cadence slowed. It definitely has slowed, but our major versions have released with more features than some of the earlier ones, and I think that's not unambiguously good. I think there are some downsides to that, but I do think that when you think about how much we were able to add in version 7, version 8, version 9, now again in version 10, it's pretty incredible, I think.
No, it definitely is. And at this point, I think it's when Roman got added and the knowledge base got a complete rework to add better guides for people getting started. And
we do have the ability now to import and export scenes. So if you want to grab some that you are using from V,
and this, I actually have
pull them forward or something.
I actually do have your pack installed here. Yes, pack. So I can now change to. There's lots of cold ones. Let's do remote.
Do the 100 pixel ones.
That has a lot of variation, and some of the maps that we've already seen.
200 pixel ones are probably designed for overhead tiles, so they're all going to have some jankiness.
This is one that I remember from your original video, Autumn Court, and it's lovely.
I love this map. Yeah.
And there's a lot of other great maps that I'm sure. I think even for V9 we were using City Courtyard for showing the day to night transition for lights and all that stuff. And this is when a lot of light animations start coming in. You've got,
Yeah, V7 was a big lighting update.
as are
That
all
was
Foundry updates now.
no,
Not in a
not
bad
all,
way.
but the thing is, like, the aesthetics of how you can present a scene, the visual side of it is, I mean, it's one of the things that is Foundry's like biggest selling point. I think is how beautiful an in-game environment can be while still being a top-down 2D tabletop.
Definitely.
Like that's kind of our thing, you know. And so it isn't necessarily a shock if every version has a little bit of that in it now, especially not now, you know, fast forwarding to what we'll talk about more recently, but especially now that, you know, Ludovic Secret Fire is part of the team, you know, we do have someone who's sort of always working in that area. So it's not necessarily that we're going to prioritize this as being a lighting focused release versus a not lighting focused release. It's sort of like every other aspect of the software where it's just there's going to be a little bit of that every time
Yes.
from here on.
And now you can see that we do get like the smooth moving of light as they're moved across the scene.
Smoother.
Smoother.
It jumps a lot. There's a lot of jittering because there was imprecision in the polygon computation that would cause like jumps from pixel to pixel that would not be solved until V9, 8.
I think 9
Sometime
is when
later.
you did the clockwise radial mega
right.
sweeps or whatever.
Not solved until V9 then. So the jerky, like the jitteriness, was a feature that's a sort of not so beautiful feature. But the fact that the shadows move, you know, as you move, that was a very nice addition.
Yeah, let me jump back to V2 and look at how that Fog of War moved so people can see that in comparison to... oh, I might need to reset the Fog of War. Let's see. Yeah, so in comparison, moving this kind of like, not stuttery, but immediate.
Yeah, an immediate flicker, yeah.
And then coming back to which one? This one. And getting to see the shadows move smoothly as you start moving across the screen, it's just awesome. And you see some more of these light effects on top of tokens. This is really cool.
The lighting is not as beautiful as it is today, but
no,
you know, this was a big step forward.
But
for the time.
Exactly, and in comparison to this, where there's no lighting animations, and you add some red here to simulate a candle, and you kind of just get like this red overlay on top of everything. That to this, it's a huge change.
Yeah.
And there's also a lot of stuff that got added in this release for other game systems. Like there's coin flipping now. Oh, I don't have dice. Oh, I don't have it installed even, so I can't flip a virtual coin for you all. I'm sorry. But you can flip coins now. You added exploding dice, which I've actually never played in a system that uses them, but are useful. And I'm actually not even sure of the proper syntax for them. I think that's right. If I want it to explode on a 6, let me just roll like 5.
You can also define like the number on which it should explode. But yeah, you got an explosion there on the first result.
And so you get this interesting effect with your chat cards where you can see everything as it's happening. There was the massive update to lights. There's now the system and module and world repository browsers that you can use. Negative values got added for lights here. You can control the intensity and the speed of animations. So I think it's, if I do a -20 and like a -40 here, we can get that. And yes, this was the origins of the roiling black mass for different lighting animations. So you can just get a ton of really cool effects for magical darkness and just a ton of other things. And also, believe it looks like in this one I can send you just a game master message with /GM, or you can do /players. And it looks like also reveal to everyone, and maybe it has to be from a item card. Let me check this real quick. Yes.
Sorry, I'm moving you around. I'm just
that's okay.
Looking at different scenes with different lights and trying to remember how the hell they work.
And then we've got pop-out messages for items, which, again, as a cleric with spiritual weapon is very helpful for me to keep track of in fights. Oh, that was a big reload. Foundry may not have liked that one. Let me see.
Sorry, I should probably stop jerking you around from map to map. Maybe you got the feared WebGL context loss.
Ooh, I think I might have.
Perpetual plague for... Oh my.
Oh yeah, I'm getting a lot of... Here, I'm going to kill the server real quick.
Let's hard reload.
Nobody saw anything. Which version are we in? 7?
That is some crazy some crazy like CSS multi drop shadow. It's going nuts for you. I think you better kill it.
There we go. Okay. We're loading back in. It's like nothing ever happened. None of you saw anything. Now we're just back at a beautiful scene. Actually, let's get to another one. Let's check out the council chambers, which made a brief appearance in the original anniversary overview video.
Yeah.
Along with a bunch of these.
It looks like so the lights from the Atropos map pack aren't compatible because that map pack is like for a future version that doesn't work back this way. All of the lights are sort of done. You know, they're sort of dead.
I'll get
but we can add some light back in and, you know, make some torches and stuff.
Exactly. Make it nice and pretty. I'll pull one of these colors from here. Get a torch going. There we go. Beautiful. Oh, and one of the biggest features is a new tab, not just in the 5e game system, but available for all game systems that want to implement it, is active effects.
Yeah.
Which...
Still, you know, a powerful system that still has more to go, I think, more that it can do, and also just, I think, still has opportunity to be more heavily utilized by, you know, by some community developed systems. But looking at you, Pathfinder.
Change your stuff over. Let me see. I never remember the rules for the actual active effects, so I always have to grab an actor and see what the data structure is like.
But yeah, it's a system that I think is really powerful, but it's one that still needs to continue maturing, still needs to continue growing. It needs an active effects phase 2. There's some stuff that would benefit a lot from that, but, you know, figuring out when we're going to make that happen, it might not be for another version or two. So I don't know, we'll see.
Okay, yes. So I just quickly made an active effect, and I'll pop it off real quick. I think this will just toggle it. Yeah. So I've been able to quickly and easily update the charisma on Ricewind by activating this. It bumps it up 2 to 10. So it's an awesome way with items or spell effects like Bless or anything like that, where you can just add cool changes to your character mode. You can like multiply values, add them, downgrade them, override them entirely with a flat value, and it's super cool. And there's now more and more modules that are taking advantage of those to automatically apply things or handle different parts of combat for you, and it's just really cool. And I think this probably deserves a call out because Roman spent so much time on it, organizing 3,500 icons to use in Foundry in this icons folder, getting pulled out from the 5e game system and organized. Taking that many icons and dividing them into some kind of
Yeah, that was a monumental task doing the icon categorization.
some kind of logical structure for that many things where it's as broad as a weapon or just the idea of energy, and having to put those together in a useful way doesn't get nearly as much credit as I think people get use out of it, but
Yeah.
was an amazing thing to get access to for all game systems, so every game can look a little bit better than they did.
We can toggle lights very easily with right click.
Yeah.
That's a nice little add.
And then I think in general there was also just a bunch of other vision changes now.
Chat message pop out.
Yes. Oh, and I think one of the things that I missed in an earlier version, let me pull out a couple of these, but I think this was added in 2 or 3. Once you add a bunch of people to the combat tracker, you can come up to the combat tracker settings and track a specific resource.
Track a specific resource. In old versions, it used to be that you had to know the magic string to provide. There is like a drop down at this point in V7 for that.
Yeah, and being able to set that to armor class or something, yeah, AC value, there it is. And then suddenly we can see Acra and Rice. Oh, I don't think we can see Ricewind because I believe that's a character that I brought forward from version 1. So not everything works perfectly if you bring something from version 1 to V7.
Yeah,
but it mostly worked pretty well. It didn't bring over armor class, which I may have just never set to begin with. But if I give him an armor class, we can see it update in the combat tracker. And by this point, Atro had been bullied into removing the drum effect on...
more drums.
Yes, so no more drums. You have to use Maestro or something else like that to be able to get...
Maybe I'm going to bring back the "It's Your Turn" sound effect. I want to bring that back.
I mean, I think the sound file is still in here.
Yeah, but I'm not sure it needs to be the same drums, but it could be like a user configurable, GM configurable choice, including the possibility of no, please, I would rather not. But I like having the sound cue that it's your turn in combat. I think that's something that I'd like to bring back. I don't remember exactly why I got bullied into removing it, or who the chief antagonist was that forced my hand, but
somebody probably just sent a bunch of RIP headphone users to you every time it was their turn. And here, let me move in and see if I can get this sound file to play. Oh wait, it didn't... Oh, I may not have actually set it. Let me... Sounds, drums, select file, update ambient sound. And now people can hear the drum effect. Yeah! This is what you get on your turn. Hopefully that's not too loud.
That's so epic. I'm like amped up to take my turn now. Right? Who wouldn't be?
Okay, there we go. I just went back to Twitch and I saw your browser encountered an error and I was like, wait, have I not been streaming for the past 10 minutes? But no, it looks like I just have to reload the player. But yeah, so put an F in the chat for having lost that feature and vote in the next Patreon poll to have it added back in.
That'll be the entire version 11. Yeah. Just "It's Your Turn" sound.
Get used to it. It's not
7 months to build it.
It's not getting taken out ever again, and I don't even think we should have an option to silence it. But we'll see what happens with the community vote.
Controversial take, Matt.
I'm full of those, but we don't need to spend as much time on the later versions because I think people are more familiar with those than they are with the early versions. But it is fun to keep moving through and see all of the new stuff that's coming through. So we can jump over to 08, which I think is the version that almost the rest of the team got added during.
That was, and I would say that 08 was sort of like, the team kind of grew a lot towards the tail end of 08, so 08 ended up being a lot of kind of onboarding, but didn't have as much opportunity yet for the new team members to really sort of exert their influence and drive sort of new features, from scratch. But I think '08 was sort of like the team was really starting to grow at that point.
Mm-hmm. By that point, it was Nath, Roman, Cody, me, and I think Kim came in at the latest point of that, but probably still got a commit or two in because he's a machine.
Can you make me a user account real quick?
Oh yeah, I'm sorry.
No problem. No
There
problem.
we go. Oh, not that many. Game Master. Save and return. And this is, I believe, where the administrator password came in.
Yeah,
and-
we finally started to take security seriously.
And
I joke mostly.
So now you can get back to the setup screen.
I do remember there being a lot of controversy around
the variance
whether it
between
was okay to use sort of informal phrases for accessing a self-hosted VTT or whether it needed to be a more, enterprise level of security.
I sense the smallest amount of still not thinking that that's that important from you. And I'm kind of on that side.
I think the thing that is true is that Foundry VTT is now hosted in a huge variety of different environments and for a huge variety of different use cases. And some of those use cases really do require password security, where you don't want some minority of those use cases is a situation where someone conceivably might try and brute force dictionary attack to get into someone's VTT.
And that's fair. And
Or
now
do something. It's just, I think it's the kind of thing that if you're providing a web service these days, it's something you need to take seriously, whether it fully makes sense for your use case or not. It's like you're providing a service that engages with the greater web, and so it isn't something you should slack off on. And so people were right to push for that, and yeah, we ended up doing it. I don't think that it was as glaring a vulnerability as it may have been portrayed to have been, but
no,
we took care of it.
Somebody in the chat pointed out that we got to protect those people who use their bank password for everything. So
yes, that's true.
So worst case scenario, it's in now. Everybody's happy. Everybody's very secure, and it's great. And this map, actually, Cultist Hideout, I think is the first time I remember you demonstrating a universal light, which I think actually came in an earlier version, but it's the first time I ever remember seeing it.
Yeah, it's sort of a way to always show an area of the map no matter what else. Although we got rid of that in later versions.
Yes.
Well, we didn't get rid of the functionality. We got rid of the way of expressing that functionality. Like there's no more drop down between like local, global. That's all gone. It's now part of the light source configuration. In a more elegant way. Also, walls at this point, like you couldn't configure, vision and light restrictions separately. You couldn't have some of that level of customization that you can now in Foundry. So,
the changes to how walls can handle different like sensory things is very cool. But you did have sound restrictions here, where like you could let walls bypass. Or let certain like sounds through and things like that. And it's all very cool, but the probably titular feature that I probably should have actually imported the 200 pixel versions this time is overhead tiles came.
Tiles, yeah. You can pick a map that...
Let's see, which is a pretty one.
To support it. Not all of these do, to be fair.
Yeah, I know.
The remote prison ones are pretty nice.
Yeah, let's see those.
They all have an overhead layer.
I'm trying not to use Forest Cabin for all of them, even though that's my favorite demonstration map, because I know that it got a little overused early on. And so now I think, let me change over to the overhead tile, or actually, oh yeah, there we go. So if I pull down Ricewind, since you've got Acra, oh, let me unlock this and see if I can place them here. So a quick demonstration of overhead tiles is that now scenes have this background and foreground image option. And so actually let me pop this open and change to this view so we can see. Oh man, now my computer's lagging from trying to load all of these super high resolution images. But you can see.
Gotcha. Yeah, Matt, load the 200 pixel version.
So we've
while you're streaming and running 8 different Foundry versions in the background.
So we've got this like console background that you can see where it has kind of like the base layer of all of the maps, and then the foreground layer that has all of these walls. It also has torch sconces and stuff like that. So all of your characters can now navigate underneath these foreground areas, and with placed tiles.
In addition with individual tiles. I'll put a tree out in the courtyard for no apparent reason.
There we go. And let me get Rice one over here so we can show off how some of these options work.
Or at least I thought I had a tree tile. One of the earlier world versions that you were running had a tree tile that I was using, but this version, here we go, tiles.
There we go. Okay,
so I'll put this tree in the foreground.
So we'll pop Rice one under here, and you can see that when I don't have anything selected, I can see that that overhead tile is there. I can see Rice one underneath it, and that's because of an occlusion setting that is set, and there's lots of different things that you control here. Actually, let me open, I need to get onto the overhead tile layer so that I can show this setting. But over here in the overhead tab, you've got an occlusion mode and occlusion alpha. So if you want the tile to always be visible and not show creatures underneath it, if you want to hide something or something, you can do that. You can hide a creature completely underneath the tree and other players won't be able to see it. Or you can drop it down and make it visible. You can change them to show things radially. So if I select Rice one here, you can see a nice little fade effect as he moves around, which is super cool.
We just streamed a couple days ago. The rebroadcast is on the Twitch channel, where we showcase some further iteration on this system and some more flexibility that's coming between tokens and tiles and elevations and things like that. But was a new system in V8 and one that will continue to improve again in V10 and probably a little bit more in V11.
And I'm gonna move because one of the coolest things is that you're doing like I don't know exactly what the word is for it, but it's like some kind of like pixel mapping to determine whether or not a token is underneath an overhead tile. And you can see that like even though the token block is kind of under this tree, it is not starting to be transparent, and it's not until we get
it's not until you're fully centrally under it until it starts kind of clipping away. So it does do some pretty nuanced pixel checking to decide when a tile needs to be toggled into that state.
I remember during when you announced this feature, I was like, oh, so just whenever the square is underneath any part of the tile, it's going to start disappearing. And then you showed it as like, I think early on in a demo, like just a few pixels had to be underneath. And I have it set to roof mode. So right now you can get a little farther underneath it than you would normally.
Yeah, roof overhangs a little bit more, but yeah.
Which is also just a nice feature because it's like you do want the overhang to be visible. You don't want to just get rid of the overhead tile for roofs when they're still on the outside of it. It's just, there was a lot of attention to detail in overhead tiles, and it feels as a layperson like an incredibly complex thing to add in, but it's awesome.
Yeah, it's one of my favorite ads that we've done post-release, I think, because it's one of those things that just continues to develop immersiveness of the scene that you're exploring. And I think that there's a lot of folks that were maybe in the bucket of thinking like, is that really an important feature for prioritization compared to all the other stuff that we could be doing? But then
Cards.
once you get that chance to sort of start walking underneath the cobwebs as you're exploring the dungeon, I think I think people you become a believer, I think. And I've seen evidence of that, of folks who were initially skeptical about this, and then like once they get the chance to experience a map, like our new Paizo releases with the beginner box and abomination vaults, like they do a great job of really leveraging this. And I think like once you get the chance to start experiencing that, it really does make you feel more sort of present in the scene. And I think it's something that's easy to underappreciate until you kind of get a chance to really try it out.
And I believe that there was also document refactor in 08. That word was not coming to me for some reason.
Yeah, we did a pretty extensive rework of our data model to standardize a lot of things. A lot of standardization occurred, and actually is occurring again in V10. We're further standardizing with taking a lot of the lessons from the document refactor and then making them able to be applied more broadly to all kinds of data models and all kinds of data types, not specifically documents. So the change from like V7 to V8 was a much bigger one, and the change from V8 to what we're doing now in V10 is a smaller, comparatively much smaller change. But it basically takes those lessons and continues building on that type of platform to bring sort of data modeling standardizations throughout the Foundry software in a way that everything is, done in a consistent way. Which, consistency is super key, I think, in a software like this one that has so many complex features. It would be very difficult for us to maintain and grow and improve the code for the software if every one of these features was its own sort of bespoke implementation. We need things to always kind of work the same way in order to be able to, have more maintainable software.
Well, and I mean, one of the nice things about the document and the data model refactor is that there's a lot more built-in consistency across each of the types that we have, whether that's tokens or lights or anything like that. And the new data model is going to make it a lot more easy and secure to work with objects. Like there's built-in validation for types of data that you're giving it for a given field and things like that, which should hopefully make things more stable and easy to work with for everybody going forward.
Yeah. I think, I'm not sure we'll do this demo, but I think one thing that would be interesting is like if we took, I don't know what the earliest version that added character exporting is, but if we took a character export from one of those earliest versions and imported it into V8 or V9, it probably would break a bit.
Probably.
But if you import that really old character into V10, now I won't guarantee it, but I would wager that V10 will do a lot better job of tolerating old data and making it conformable to the new data model. So everything's a lot more robust. I think it is going to protect users from themselves a bit more. There's more validation, which leads to, better data quality, more support for migration and shimming and things that will allow data to move from version to version with less surprises. Better ability for everyone, not just us, but also module and system developers to rely on and expect that when you have a piece of data of a certain type, that it has the stuff that it's supposed to have. That I think that's really important and will help to make Foundry just more stable over time.
Well, and one of the benefits that came with kind of a lot of that data model work was this version introduced default token configurations. So you can set how you want all of your newly created tokens to be set up, whether you want them to have vision set up by default, any kind of lights, like which display bars you want set up and all that stuff. So you got a lot less fiddling with every new character that you want to add to the world. And I believe one of the other things was, also added a no canvas mode, which I probably won't show now because it won't be very visually interesting to anybody, but we can look at the denim background if we want to, and individual users can use this. So if you want to use Foundry as just a character sheet for some reason, or one of your players is on a very weak machine and is kind of like move knight to e5, navigating through the battle map and stuff, they can do that and use Foundry and not kind of like overheat or cook their laptop. But this was another thing that wasn't added in this version. I think has actually been in for a while, but a maximum frame rate option is in. There's a ton more options for general core settings. There's the left click to release objects, which seems like your rebellious way to not call it deselect, or not rebellious because it's technically more accurate than deselect is. Even if maybe deselect is a little bit more intuitive.
Whatever.
Intuitiveness is overrated, at least for that.
Yeah, maybe not, but
and then I believe there was, I won't show this necessarily, but another like 1,500 icons got added.
Yeah, many more icons.
To this. The audio engine, I think, is this when? No, this isn't when.
This is when we did the big redesign of the audio engine. Yeah, this was a huge task to totally redo audio. I don't know if you have any playlists that you can pull in.
Oh, I think I have that on my logo here. Let me get one uploaded real quick, and we can see modules. Ivan Dutch has an exclusive content pack on Foundry VTT, and you should definitely check it out because it's filled with awesome sound effects like the ones that I'm about to pull in. We'll do Storm. That sounds cool. Okay, create ambient sound, but we'll put the Storm outside, but very narrowly located here. And one of the cool features here is this preview ambient sounds option, because in Foundry now, the farther out you are, the less you hear the sound source. But as I slowly move it in, you can start to hear the rain coming on more and more and more powerfully. So if you have a big town center or something, and you have a chattering crowd ambient sound effect, as your players start to get closer to people, it all works as you expect. And you can test to find out how strong or how weak it should be. You can change the maximum volume on it, and also darkness activation range for sound effects too. So now lights and sounds across a range can be set to activate or deactivate based on the time of day. And it's just really cool.
Being able to have certain localized sound effects that are active at night versus during the daytime, it allows you to build some really immersive scenes that have awesome ability to transition. And it's not just ambient sounds that we totally redid in V8, but the entire audio engine. So playlists got a lot more tooling, bulk import of playlist audio, all kinds of different support for, improving the performance, improving the capabilities. There was some pretty great stuff that we added on the audio front. And actually, I've been really pleased at how stable and well-performing the audio system has been since we did this in V8, because part of the reason we did it in V8 was to get away from a third-party library that we were using that, kind of was a bit finicky and it could have some trouble. There were circumstances where audio wouldn't work. And I'm not saying that there's no bugs at all in the audio system now, but I think that the audio foundation that we have is one that's technically very sound at this point, and it's one that we can continue building on and can continue growing in a way that I feel very confident about.
Yeah, I'm doing a bulk import of audio now, and we just pulled in a whole bunch of different sound effect packs into our music playlist. You can change how it's working. You can also preload sounds for users, so you can get that sent out to players before the song comes in, so you don't have kind of like a buffering moment when you're trying to get to that epic moment.
Preloading, fading, crossfading.
Sound description, so you can even track that. You can set repeats, individual things, like the streaming of the audio in general for like big format files or big files.
Large duration files,
and
moving the playlist, the like now playing and the volume controls either top or bottom depending on your UI preference.
Yes. Though actually I think the ability to move it might have come in the next version.
Oh, maybe that was a V9 thing. Yeah, could be. Yeah,
Um,
we've continued to add additional audio features, but the audio engine that we're using in that we added in V8 has been like a really powerful enhancement, and I think it's something that like I think that foundation of the software is in a really good shape for us to continue growing it in the future.
and keeping with the theme of always include a vision update, there's now also oh, it looks like in this version, were you just changing playlist audio?
Yeah, sorry, I Falls Cavern just kind of assaulted me for a moment
Oh
there,
yeah.
so I lost it.
uh, this version also included the change to unrestricted vision range,
Mhm.
and also the vision limitation threshold, which is basically when should your players always be able to see everything that's not blocked by a wall.
Yeah, better configurability of the darkness slider and the scene transition from sort of daytime to nighttime. At some point, after some level of darkness, like you can no longer see the whole map. You can only see whatever your token's sort of special vision allows for. Yeah, that's something that, of course, in V10 is going to be getting all kinds of new features. We're really focused on vision at the moment. Secret Fire is working super hard on some amazing stuff there.
And it's already looking very cool. But actually, let's see, which version was it where I was testing darkness earlier? I think it was 3. We can take a look at how different. Oh, I might need to refresh this. Yeah, there we go. We can see what darkness looked like back then on a nice snowy map and see what it looks like now. Or actually, maybe it's version 4 that added the darkness overlay. Let me change to, or no, it was 5. Because
Yeah, it doesn't
4,
look like you had it in that version, so maybe 5 is what you'll be looking for.
yeah, let's jump over here. Light, yes, and we'll transition into darkness.
I think,
There we
like
go.
yeah, the darkness just a little bit less finesse and less good interaction with placed light sources.
Yeah, if we place a nice big torchlight and we'll give it a little, get a little more orange there. Glow. Now, again, partially just including the light animations makes it such a big difference from V5, where there weren't any, and if I set it to be basically the same, yellowish orange. Oh, actually, maybe there's another issue over here, because that didn't actually activate. Let me set its opacity to be higher. I don't know. Something
Well,
has
you're
failed for
encountering
me.
a problem with the older lighting system, which because it was multiplicative, it's really hard to add light when things are dark. Like
Oh,
you can kind of add a finesse, sort of an overlay type finesse, but with multiplicative lighting, it's very hard to make things brighter. Um,
there. Anyway, the point being, things look so good in this version, and a lot of the
yeah, it's been
core.
improved a lot. It's been improved. Turn the darkness up all the way so that we can see that
Oh
it's
yeah,
a little bit less purpley and a little bit more natural.
there we
Um,
go. Okay. There, let me turn off Falls Cavern. There we go. And then I believe that's every. Oh wait, there was added support for measured templates using video files. I don't have kind of like a fiery explosion or one of the JB2A animations or anything to put here, but you can now set these to have animated effects. So for all of you automation fans who want it to be as video game like as possible, you can start setting these to actually look like fireballs when you're casting fireball. And it's in general pretty cool. It looks very impressive all the time. And there's been a lot of awesome work into handling a lot of that stuff. But that's V8. Now we can skip to the penultimate release of Foundry VTT with
yeah, table.
Foundry 9. And this one I already have a world prepared, but I haven't installed a game system yet because one of the features that we added was a little bit more of our first kind of like new user experience, trying to improve what it's like to get started with Foundry. So now if you load into a world, or if you open up Foundry, you don't have a game system, you get this nice recommendation for the fact that it's necessary to install a game system, like some links to some tutorials and stuff like that. So I'll just come in, quickly download the 5e game system, and once that finishes loading, then we'll have access to the world screen, and the world that I'd already made will be available in a moment. Yeah, there we go. I'll launch this. Let me make sure modules are enabled. Import a bunch more of these maps. And what's one that we haven't taken a look at? Burning Glade.
Yeah, we can do the...
That one's nice because you get to see a little bit of the flickering effect that comes through with some of these animations.
Sorry to derail you, but I'm going to need a user.
Oh, yeah.
But yes, V9 lighting is when we really sort of mastered the hybrid art of adaptive lighting, partial additive, partial multiplicative, in order to produce an effect that doesn't wash out the scene, that augments it, that interacts with the colors of the pixel underneath the token. That V9 is when, you know, the lighting system in Foundry has really begun to realize its potential. And if you were to look at, say, this, don't feel like you need to do this, but if you were to look at this scene in, you know, one of our older lighting systems versus in a more recent version, the difference is really truly stark. And yeah, these trees probably need a little bit more aggressive flickering, but I'll forgive them that instead of, you know.
So let's take a look at Winter Ambush back in 03 to what we've got now in V9 with flickering light animations, multiplicative light, like all of these, just opening the configuration window. Now we've got 3 tabs, including like an advanced options tab where you get a ton of crazy additional options for like color burn effects, internal color burn, low absorption, invert absorption. Like you can just do, including the legacy coloration if you want that still, internal halos. Like there's I can't think of a feature of like light as a concept that isn't like toggleable in some way in this version of Foundry.
Just ask Secret Fire. He'll give you about 80 features of light as a concept that we could possibly support. The man is full of amazing ideas.
And then all of that in comparison to light type, position, dim bright, emission angle, and color. It's just a kind of crazy glow up, as the kids say.
Glow up, nice.
And we've got lots of new animations. There's radial rainbows. There's fairy lights. So I think with some of the settings that are on right now for illumination, it's not as obvious with all the red, but you can see this starting to shift through if you wanted to have a rainbow fire, like a firework factory was going off or something. But that's just a little bit of the lighting stuff that is available. There's tons of new things. Cody and Andrew also did a bunch of work on packages, I think, for version 9, and like how, or not packages, but for our versioning system, changed from the XYZ or X.Y.Z to V9 as a simple name like share to identify each release with, and change to a build system that I don't fully understand but seems to work well.
Yeah, we added a lot of features in terms of like improving the capability of packages. I think this is a good version to showcase like how smooth, like when you control a token and move it and sort of look at the shadows moving, there's none of that jerkiness anymore. This was this was the version where we implemented the clockwise sweep that made the lighting computation sort of pixel perfect and completely smooth, so that when you're moving around relative to things that that cast shadow or occlude your view, it is kind of perfectly smooth in terms of the animation of those vision shadows moving.
It does look really nice, and it became problematic in the game that I play in, because if the game wasn't paused, I would just keep moving my token around just to watch the edges move, because it's just fun to watch.
It's pretty satisfying. Yeah, it's pretty satisfying.
It looks very nice. And this was also, I completely skipped over kind of like the titular feature for the community for V9, which was card support came in. There's the ability to create decks of cards with like preset packs of dark and light card games or poker decks. You can have separate hands, piles, you can pass things around between them. So if I wanted to shuffle and then deal, let's say 15 of these cards to this hand, I can do that. I can play things to the chat. If there's other piles to pass them through, you can do the same thing. You can draw more cards. You can pick which decks you want to do it from. It's like a very expansive and impressive system that the community's gone and made like even more features on top of. If anybody has checked out, Monarch is an excellent module for like a different way of displaying cards and handing them around between players, and it's all just very cool. And this one also include big changes to scene configurations. Rather than that super long scroll that you had to go through before, it's all split into tabs now. It's like logically set up between the grid and lighting. Oh, and I actually didn't realize this, but the macro directory couldn't have folders before this, apparently, which is kind of interesting. But you can now do that and create a bunch of macros for yourself. And oh, this is not the map that I thought of, but it does look.
Sorry, nice. I'm just clicking around on stuff.
Oh, that's all good. Oh, and
feel free to change to something else as you prefer.
I think this version also includes the first Free Project Friday code to make it into core.
Maybe.
Which is
what is that feature?
Scrolling status effects.
Oh yeah.
So if we gravely wound Ricewind here, we can see this scrolling like Final Fantasy-esque status effect, which is something that it was like our first or second Free Project Friday or something.
Yeah.
And I was like, look guys, I made some pictures for the Twitch stream, and you were like, I added an entire new core feature to Foundry. But that's how every free project.
I know where all the bodies are buried, so I know where the code needs to go.
But this is a feature that I like a lot and always is very satisfying when it comes up. And one of the cool things is actually that like the bigger the amount relative to the maximum, the larger the scrolling text is. So if we heal for 12, it's bigger than when we're damaged for 6 or something like that. So if you're incredibly eagle-eyed, there's maybe some metagaming that you could do with that, but I would be impressed if you could actually get close to guessing the amount of HP that a creature had doing that. Oh, and then Cody's major contribution of key bindings, I believe, came through.
Yeah.
Where is that in the settings?
Configure controls.
Oh, right. It's not in the configure settings. It has its whole own button.
It's its whole thing.
So now anybody who doesn't like toggle character sheet C, you can change it to be S or something like that if you want, or caps lock or anything else. Save it. You can set up whole new keybinds, and this is nice because it broke down a requirement for modules to handle key binding and centralized it, and from my understanding was very complicated.
Yeah.
Apparently keybinds are a lot trickier than it sounds like they would be.
Yeah, it was a really complex system to add in a good way. I think adding a very rudimentary version of key bindings could have been more simple, but like that would have had limitations that I think the community would have found to be unacceptable. So, we needed to really do it right, and so the complexity of the key bindings system ended up being merited in that regard.
And that, I believe, gets us through all of the big features in V9. And if anybody wants to see the biggest features that came out in V10, then you should probably check out the VOD that we still have on Twitch and should be going up on YouTube soon. I rendered it last night, but I don't think it's uploaded. Check out the V10 developer Q&A stream, which was Tuesday, and walks through everything that's going out in Prototype 3 and a bunch of other things. And you can also check out Prototype 3, but do not use it for your live games. Make sure you do backups even if you're not using it for your live games, just so that you don't accidentally mess up any of your stuff. And it's great. And we can check out V10. I do have it set up, but I imagine pretty much everybody who's here probably watched.
What's the first version that supports like a character export?
Let's see. Let's go back to V2 and see if that can do it.
I noticed. I don't think 2 can, because I noticed that the right click. Well, actually, it might for actors.
It can for actors. So let me export this data.
Maybe not for other document types. Get a V2 character and let's see if we can pull it into V10.
Okay.
This may not work.
We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
Create new. Import
I may
data.
need a user account in V10, but you can test it first.
I've imported it.
I'm sorry, I do have one.
Oh, good. Whew. You didn't have one every other time, so it's fair to ask for it.
What happened? Did it?
I don't think I got anything. Let me open up my...
Didn't get anything. Okay.
That's a shame.
Oh, I see you haven't used my trick of... cannot read properties of undefined bar 1. Okay, so you can't quite take an actor from V2 into V10.
But
I know that's going to break some hearts.
At least not through exporting and importing, because I do have
It means our V10 migration is missing a couple rules, I guess.
We got to go back, because if people can't come from V1 to V10, why even bother using Foundry?
Yeah, why are we doing anything? I don't know.
But I will say, Ricewind that I have open right now has been incrementally upgraded from V1 to V10. So maybe we just need to go back to the old code.
Incremental migration is a lot easier than going 2 directly to 10. I'll tell you that much. We don't have rules in place for that.
But it was cool being able to take Ricewind through the whole thing and just add new items when they came up. And now, like, Ricewind, who was created as a level 1 rogue before subclasses or like any advancement existed, like you can now set his level, he'll get features, he'll have all the stuff that he's supposed to, things will be updated, and that's pretty crazy. He did he did not have any of his advancement or subclass defined, so his features
none of that, but if you were to pull in, I'm not sure that the new 5e character advancement is fully working in V10 yet, because the 5e system devs haven't started, with a version of V10 compatibility, but
coming soon.
coming soon.
But that's Foundry then, and now we delivered on the concept of the stream. It was not...
We've accomplished the concept of the stream. We should go back to where we started with the dice.
Oh yeah, we can close out with a nice look at the Foundry VTT. Oh, I think the amount of installations of Foundry I have running now is possibly killing me. Here, let me close that up.
You've reached the limits of your capabilities.
Oh, actually, maybe I got logged out or something because I refreshed and then I was back on the
Yeah.
login screen.
Too many simultaneous Foundry servers that are crushing Matt.
There we go. Now it's back and they're looking so pretty. And I'm going to change this back to night mode because the glow on the dice looks so good. And also, didn't give a shout out, but everybody should go to therollsmith.com. He's JDW who makes Dice So Nice, sells a bunch of custom dice skins there. You can buy them one off and you'll have them forever. Anybody in your party will be able to use them. And there's a lot of really cool dice out there. And for free, you can get access to our Foundry VTT anniversary themed set and get this cool lava wrought iron effect, which JDW and his partner pulled together very last minute, but very well.
Yeah, came together really great. And we, having gone through the annals of history for Foundry, I feel this has been pretty cool for me, I think. So thanks for suggesting it, Matt. I've enjoyed looking back at some of the origins of these features, and I hope that the folks watching have enjoyed that too. It's been a real journey, and I think that it would be wrong to say that we're just getting started, because I think we've accomplished a tremendous amount, and we're much more than just getting started. We've got a product that I'm really proud of, and I think the team is proud of, and that we've really put a lot into making it as functional as it is now. But in the spirit of us just getting started, we have such huge ideas of things that we intend to do, and we hope that we'll be able to make 10 more versions of Foundry, if not more than that.
Like I said during the anniversary stream, we're going for our Platinum Jubilee, just like the Queen, and I think we're going to get it, and I can't wait to do Foundry Then and Now on our Platinum Jubilee. And
yeah, well, I'll look forward to the next time we do Foundry Then and Now, and we can jump from V2 to V,
93.
V93, yeah.
The VR lighting update.
Yeah.
But
all right, well, Matt, what else do we want to show today while we've got everyone here as our captive audience?
Oh man, what else do we have? Tomorrow there's a PaizoCon stream, which we I think we're gonna host it on our channel. So if you want to keep an eye on the Foundry Twitch channel, we'll be hosting the official Paizo Twitch, and you can watch Atro and Nath, who was the lead content developer for Abomination Vaults and Beginner Box. So for all of the Pathfinder fans out there, you can thank him and Cora and Narky for the excellent map work for that epic realization of those two adventures.
Yeah, we're really excited by that. Let's give a shout out to the team, Roman, Nath, everyone Matt, you, myself, everyone who contributed to the Year in Review article, which is now live on the website. It shares a little bit of written perspective about where we are and where we're going, and some cool things that have happened this year and things we're looking forward to in the future. Prototype 3 for V10 just released for the devs out there to give it a try carefully. And we'll be working really hard on continuing with that. The Paizo stuff that's happening is super thrilling. We've got the new anniversary dice skin that we've shown. Hopefully everyone loves using that in Foundry with Dice So Nice. It's a really beautiful thing. And we will be continuing on from here to just continue making this crazy software bigger and better and more beautiful and easier to use to tell awesome stories. So thank you all so much for supporting us in that vision and giving us a platform and a community where we actually can, make that what we do every day.
It is kind of remarkable. I was just talking to Wendy about that last night, that I can't believe that this is something I get to actually say is my job, and there's a lot of work that goes into it, but it's so totally worth it.
Yeah, we're very fortunate to be able to do this and to have a community like this one to empower that for us. So I think that about wraps up our stream for today. We
think
will
so.
be back live on Twitch tomorrow. I'll be streaming our Abomination Vaults actual play, and so I hope to see most of you back then.
Or that's actually
But for
Saturday.
now-
PaizoCon is tomorrow.
I'm sorry. Ooh,
There's a lot of streams this week.
Is a blur. Tomorrow is our PaizoCon panel. Yes, so that will be tomorrow at what time? Let's give the correct time of the PaizoCon panel tomorrow.
That will be at 2 p.m. Eastern. So adjust that to your UTC time zone as necessary.
p.m. Eastern, and then I think noon Eastern on Saturday
Yes.
for the Abomination Vaults actual play. My mistake. It's all a blur.
And be sure to check out on our YouTube the Menace Under Otari actual play so you can get to know the characters. There was a lot of fun nonsense that happened during that stream. I would definitely recommend it.
Yeah.
And more to come.
More to come for sure. All right, everyone. Thanks so much, Matt. Thanks so much for hosting our blast from the past. And you can take us out when you are ready.
Hopefully everybody liked that. This was Foundry Then and Now. Thank you, Andrew, for putting this together for so long by yourself. It really is like a monumental achievement to have gotten where you did by yourself. And I think that now with everybody here, the pace has gone up, but it's insane to think of what you were doing part-time, and we as the community are all very thankful for the effort that you put in and the amazing product that it's turned out to be and the amazing community and friends that it's helped us all get to. So thank you all for watching. Thank you, Andrew, for putting it together, and we'll see you next time. And Andrew, you want to take us out with your famous catchphrase?
Cheers all. Happy gaming.